so many people from different backgrounds and different religions and countries of origin all coming together around our common love and concern for the earth. It's very beautiful for people to come together across their religious backgrounds because there's something bigger and more important that we all care about, which transcends the things which sometimes separate us. So it's lovely to be here, and I want to really offer my thanks and appreciation to Rabbi Jonathan Merrill and to David Myron Wagner and all the people at the Faith Centre for Sustainability for making this wonderful event happen, and also for the hosts at Tantor for making available this wonderful place which just breathes harmony and cooperation and understanding as a wonderful oasis in bringing people together in this city. What was the question?
Yeah.
So the basis for renewable energy in Judaism. I agree with His Excellency the Bishop that the Bible does not say anything directly about renewable energy. The Bible does say that we are to protect and preserve creation, and energies which do that, which preserve and protect creation and don't destroy creation, have to be better from a religious perspective. So that's the first thing, and perhaps the most important thing. Second thing is, although the Bible and the Jewish sources have nothing to say directly about renewable energy, because it didn't come about until many hundreds of years later, they do have something to say about the fundamental resources of life. There are some extraordinarily interesting texts, and Professor Alpert might have alluded to one or two of them in his talk, about how we understand water in this country, in the Holy Land. There's a beautiful text, which I love very much, from Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud Ta'amit, which says as follows. It says, "It was not an accident that God made the sources of water in this land, in the Holy Land, a land which would be a focus of religious inspiration, made those sources of water come from the heavens and not from the earth." Right? The Holy Land is not a place where people get our water from big rivers running through it. Water comes, if at all, comes from the heavens. And the Talmud says that God made it like that because there are four big differences about whether your water comes from the heavens or whether it comes from rivers running through the earth. Those differences are that, number one, Talmud says, because of the strong, meaning that if the water is on the earth, it's running through the earth, then people can control those sources of water and dominate them and make them theirs. But if the water comes from heaven, you can't do that. Anybody who can collect the water has access to the water. Number one, because of the strong. Number two, in order to disperse the vapours. In other words, that when you rely on water coming from heaven, that has an inherent effect in dispersing pollution and dust and making the air more pleasant to breathe if water comes from heaven rather than from big rivers in the earth. The third reason, so that the high and the low alike should be able to drink. Sounds, I admit, very much like the first reason, that there's a fundamental equality about water coming from heaven rather than from earth, which because everybody has access to it. And finally, the fourth reason, so that all should turn their eyes up to heaven. Right? If water comes from heaven, then you have a reason to be looking to heaven all the time. And you recognize your dependence on the heavens, your dependence on God for the fundamental resource of your life. And that makes people more religious than if you can just control the resource and be confident that it's yours and that you're not dependent on divine providence to give it to you. So those are four differences which the Talmud says are fundamentally at stake in where water, the essential resource of life in those days, comes from. And I think it's remarkable that if you translate this into 21st century terms and to substitute the word energy for where it says water, then the wisdom of this statement still applies. And that there are fundamental differences between whether your energy comes from the heavens, from renewable sources, from solar, from wind, or whether it comes from inside the earth, from fossil fuels, from oil, from coal, from gas, which powerful people or countries can dominate, can control, and they have it, and they can sell it to other people for whatever they're willing to pay. All of those things apply. Right? That fossil fuels, there's something fundamentally unequalizing about them. If someone can dominate that piece of the piece of land which has the fossil fuels under it, rather than solar, where anybody who can have a solar collector can access that energy. The pollution, fossil fuels are polluting, whereas renewable energy from the heavens is not. And finally, the turning your eyes to heaven. If you have solar energy on your roof, and this is a point which my teacher who you mentioned, Arnold Goldman, Zichrono Bracha, was very insistent on, you are fundamentally aware of and connected to where your energy is coming from. Right? You have panels on your roof, you see the sun come down, hit the panels, you hit the light switch, and you realize the connection between you, this infinite source of energy in the sky, and the energy that you use in your home. And if you contrast that with fossil fuels, you could hardly imagine a system which was best designed to cut you off from an awareness of where your energy comes from than burning coal or oil, which you dig out of the ground. Someone digs out of the ground. It's trucked thousands of miles across the country. It's burned in a power station. It's sent hundreds of thousands more miles to your house. And by the time it gets to you, there's absolutely no connection between you and the source of the energy which is powering your life. Whereas with solar, it's absolutely obvious. And so, although this source and others like it are talking about water, I think there's this remarkably prescient in the way that it understood the different qualities, socio-economic qualities, political qualities, and spiritual qualities, which are inherent in the source of your energy. That if your energy comes from the heavens, that it has all these benefits, and it comes from in the ground, it has all these potentially destructive effects. And the Talmud understood that water came from heaven, Dafka, in this land, in the land of Israel. And so I think it teaches that we should strive to bring our sources of energy too from the heavens, to be true to the spiritual qualities that God wants us to bring out in this land.